Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we're going to be going over the math homework for Class P. This is for session U6. All right, for question number one, it says 4 times parentheses 2 plus 3 minus 1. So here you have to do the order of operations. So you're going to have to do 2 plus 3 first. And that's going to give you 5. And then you have to do the multiplication. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then we do 20 minus 1. It's going to be equal to choice C, 19. All right, next we're question number 2. According to the chart above, what was the difference in Sally's account from the beginning of the 5-month period to the end of the 5-month period? So at the beginning, in January, it was at 200. And now you want to skip all the stuff in the middle. You just want to figure out the stuff at the end. And at the end, it was 400. So we're at 200. Now you went up to 400. So it was choice C, an increase of $200. Next, for question number 3, what is the result when 0.2438 is rounded to the nearest hundredths? So here, the hundredths place is right here with this 4, but you want to look at the place value to the right, which is this 3. So 3 tells you to round down. And when you round down, you leave the 4 alone, and everything after that is just a 0. So the answer is 0.24, choice A. All right, next for question number 4, ABCD is a rectangle, and line AC and BD intersects at point E. If the length of AC is 16, the length of BE is, so AC here is 16. I want to know the length of BE. Well, one thing to keep in mind is that for a rectangle, the diagonals are equal. And they also bisect one another. And what bisect means is that they cut each other in half. So if the diagonal is equal to 16, then half of that is going to be 8. So each of these halves is going to be 8. And same for line segment BD. So to get BE, the distance will be choice C, 8. All right, next for question number 5, if symbol R is equal to A times B and symbol R is an odd integer, which of the following could be the values of A times B? Here you have this weird symbol, which is a function, and a function is an input-output machine. So what that means is you just have to follow the rules, and the rule here is to do A times B. So when you multiply them, you're supposed to get an odd integer. So go through all the choices, multiply each of them. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 8 is 32. You have 21. 2 and 9 is 18. And 0 times 1 is 0. So 4 of these are even, except for choice C. If you have odd times odd, it's equal to odd. Next, for question number 6, when 28 is added to 3 times the number y, and the sum is divided by 2, the result is 2 times the number y. What's the value of y? So here you have to turn the word sentence to a number sentence. So the first keyword is added to, which means plus. So you want to do 28, and you're going to add 3 times y. And of course, times means multiply. And now the sum is divided by 2. So when you divide this whole thing by 2, that's going to be equal to, means equals to, 2 times the number y. Again, times is multiply. So your equation is 28 plus 3y divided by 2 is equal to 2y. And to solve for this, you're going to use inverse operations. And what you did on one side, you got to do to the other side. So the first step is to times 2. Let's get rid of the denominator. You'll get 28 plus 3y on the left. And that's going to be equal to 4y on the right. And now you can subtract 3y on both sides, and you actually get that y on the right is equal to just 28. And that's choice B. All right, next for number 7, if T is 120% of P and P is 50% of R, what is R in terms of T? So again, here, just word sentences or number sentences, now you have percent. So is means equals to, of means times, and then percent means divide by 100. So those are the keywords here. So T is equal to 120 divided by 100 times P. Cross out that 0, you can figure out that T is 1.2 times P. That's your first equation. Now for your second equation, again, is equals to, of is times, percent means divide by 100. So now you have P is 50 divided by 100 times R, or 0.5 R. So that's your second equation. Now here, you would have to do a substitution because P is the connection to both. So you'll replace 0.5 R and substitute that in for P. So T is equal to 1.2 times 0.5 R. And 1.2 times 0.5, or half of 1.2 is 0.6. So T is equal to 0.6 times R. Now you want R in terms of T, and what that means is you have to actually get R by itself. So in order to isolate the variable R, you're going to have to divide by 0.6, or you can also write this as 3/5. And by putting this as a fraction, you can actually multiply by the reciprocal 5/3 on both sides to get rid of the fraction. So R will be equal to 5/3 of T. You get the same thing if you divide by 0.6. Just remember to keep change flip when you are dividing by a fraction. So the answer here is choice C. R is equal to 5/3 of T. All right, and here's a summary for this page. All right, next for question number 8, the sum of 230 divided by T and 1 must be an integer. Which of the following cannot be the value of T? So when you're adding something and and the number 1 has to be an integer. Remember, an integer is a whole number. So because an integer is a whole number, 1 of course is a whole number. That means that 230 divided by T must be a whole number too. And the only way to get this fraction to be a whole number is for the denominator T to be a multiple, or rather a factor of 230. So you can actually do the prime factorization here, or you can also test out all the choices and try to divide it into 230. So for example, for choice A, 230 is even, so T could be equal to 2, because you get a whole number. For choice C, 230 ends in 0, and multiples of 5 ends in 0, 5. So we know it's a multiple of 5. Same thing for 10, has to end in 0, and 230 ends in a 0. And for 23, 230 is 23 times 10. So 23 is also a factor. The only one that doesn't work is choice B, 4. If you try to divide 230 by 4, you'll actually get some decimals here. So 4 goes into 23 5 times. When we subtract, you have 7. 7 times 4 is 28. So you actually get a remainder of 2. So the answer here is 57.5. Or 57 2/4, which is 57 1/2. Or 57.5, and that is not a whole number. It's between integers, so 57.5 is not a whole number, so the sum wouldn't be an integer. The answer has to be B. All right, next for question number 9, if a rectangle has corners at -2, 2, -2, 6, and 4, 6, what is the location of the fourth corner? Really helps draw a grid. So you have negative 2 comma 2, which is in quadrant 2, negative 2 comma 6, and then 4 comma 6. So you can kind of see that the other corner has to be down here to complete the rectangle. It must have the same x as that 4 comma 6 and the same y as negative 2 comma 2. So it has to be 4 comma 2, which is choice D. All right, next for number 10, what is the slope of the line expressed by the equation 2y is equal to 3x plus 2? So you have to put this in slope-intercept form, or y is equal to mx plus b, where x comma y are the points, m is the slope, which is what we're looking for, and b is the y-intercept. So to turn 2y is equal to 3x plus 2 into slope-intercept form here, you have to divide both sides by 2. Now, when you have this fraction with the common denominator, you can actually split this into 2 separate fractions. You can always combine them together because the LCD is 2. And that means that you have y is equal to 3 halves of x plus 1. So if you line up all of the variables, the slope of m corresponds to 3 over 2. So the answer is choice A. The y-intercept is 1. All right, next for number 11, according to the table above, if f of x is equal to 3x minus 1 divided by 2, what's the value of m? So here you have a function, which is again an input-output machine. And we know the rule here is 3x minus 1 divided by 2. So the first thing to do to find m is to figure out what you substitute into this function to get m. So you substitute an s plus 4 into this machine, you get m. But I don't know what s plus 4 is. So then to figure out what s is, you have to first substitute in 4 into this function, and then you'll get s. So that's our goal here. So to do that, first you substitute in f of 4. And the rule tells you to do 3 times negative 1, 3 times 4. Then you subtract 1 and you divide by 2. That's going to be 12 minus 1 over 2, or 11 over 2. You can also write this as 5.5. So that means that f of 4 is equal to s, which is equal to 5.5. And once you know what s is, you can then substitute in to solve for m. So if s is 5.5, 5.5 plus 4 is going to be equal to 9.5. So you'll have to substitute in 9.5 for the function. And this function is telling you to first multiply by 3. Then you subtract 1, and then you divide by 2. So 9.5 times 3 is 28.5. So I have 28.5 minus 1 divided by 2. Or 27.5 divided by 2. So the final answer is actually 27.5 divided by 2, which is none of these following, so there's a typo here. Of course, that's not a whole number. It's going to be some decimal. So just be wary of that. All right, next for question number 12. How many distinct products can be obtained by multiplying any of the two numbers in the list of numbers above? So distinct means different. So what you want to do is multiply numbers and try to get different pairs. So for example, you can get 0. 0 times anything is 0. And then you just go to the next number. So you have 1. You can have 1 times 3, 1 times 5, 1 times 7, as well as 1 times -1, -3, -5, -7. So that means that you can have 3, 5, 7, -1, -3, -5, -7. So whichever positive numbers you have, you can also get the negative versions. Then you go to the next number. You don't want 3 and 0 or 3 and 1 because you already did that. So you just have 3 and 5, 3 and 7, and then 3 and -1, -3, -5, -7. So 3 and 5 is 15, 3 and 7 is 21. And then you have -3, which you actually have already. But you still have the 3 times -3, which is -9, and then -15, and then -21. Then you do the same thing for the 5s. So you have 5 and 7, which is the only pair left. We also have to do the negatives. So 5 and -1 you already did. And still need 5 and -3, which you actually did as well. All right, 5 and -5 is new, and 5 and -7. All right, so far you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 so far. And then the last pair is going to be the 7s. So for the 7s, you already did 7 and 5, which is already 5, 7 and 3, etc., etc. The only thing that is left is 7 and -7, which is -49, which is the final number, and that will give you 17 numbers, choice B. Barring any duplicates, that should be the answer here. So you basically have the positives and the negative versions of each of these pairs. Next for number 13, if 3 squared is equal to 11 to the a power, then 11 to the 2a power is equal to. So here, you can actually rewrite 11 to the 2a because the exponent is being multiplied, and you multiply exponents when you have a power to a power. So b to the a raised to the c power is b to the a times c. So here you can actually rewrite 11 to the 2 times a power as 11 to the a squared. And I'm going to put 11 to the a first because 11 to the a power is known as 3 squared in this case. And that's just equal to 9. So that's equal to 9 squared, which is 81, which is choice B. Again, the key is to use this law of exponent to help us rewrite the problem. All right, next for number 14, if 6 divided by g is equal to h over j and g over j is equal to 3 over 1, then h is equal to. So here when you have two equivalent fractions, the first thing you got to do is just cross multiply and see what happens. So on the left you have 6 times j, on the right you have g times h, and they're equal. And then for the second fraction, or equivalent fraction, second proportion, you have g times 1, which is g, and you have 3j. So if you know that 3j is equal to g, you can actually replace the variable g with 3j, and that will give you 6 times j is equal to 3j times h. And from here, you can actually divide by 3j on both sides, assuming, again, j is not equal to 0. So otherwise, you'd be dividing by 0. The 3 and the j will cancel out on the right side, and on the left side, j will cancel out, and 6 divided by 3 would be equal to 2. And you have h left over. So h must be equal to 2, which is choice B. Next, for number 15, if 48 ounces of soda have a volume of 32 cubic centimeters, what is the volume in cubic centimeters of 6 pounds of the soda? So 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So 6 pounds of soda, you'll have to do 16 times 6. You get 96 ounces. So you know that 48 ounces is 32 cubic centimeters, so cm cubed. And you have 96 ounces. Well, 48 times 2 is equal to 96. So if you multiply by 2 on the left side, you also got to multiply by 2 on the right side. And 32 times 2 is 64 cubic centimeters. So the answer is going to be choice E, 64. All right, next for number 16. In a jar of cookies, 1/8 of the cookies are oatmeal raisin, 1/4 are peanut butter, half are chocolate chip, and the remaining 12 cookies are mint. How many peanut butter cookies are in the jar? So you have 3 parts, the 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2. And if you add these 3 fractions using the LCD of 8, where you have to rewrite 1/8 as just 1/8, 1/4 becomes 2 over 8, and 1/2 becomes 4 over 8. You add everything up, you get 7/8. So the 7/8 are oatmeal, raisin, peanut butter, and chocolate chip. The total, which is 1 whole minus 7/8, is equal to the leftovers, 1/8. And this 1/8 actually represents the mint cookies, the 12 that are mint. So the 1/8 corresponds to 12. So if 1/8 corresponds to 12, and you want to know the peanut butter cookies, well, peanut butter cookie is 1/4. So to go from 1/8 to 1/4, you're going to have to multiply by 2 on both sides. Because when you multiply 1/8 by 2, you get 2 over 8, which equal to 1/4. And then on the right side, also times 2. Oops, sorry about that. You multiply by 2, and that's going to give you 24. So 1/4 of the total corresponds to 24 cookies, which is choice A. You can also find the total number of cookies in a jar and do 12 times 8, which is 96, and then just do 96 divided by 4. All right, so here's a summary for this page. Again, keep in mind the typo for question number 11. All right, next one, number 17. In the figure above, one vertex of the square is touching the center of the circle, and a second vertex touches a point on the circle. If one side of the square is 2, what's the area of the shaded region? So we know that as for the square, all sides are equal. So if one side is equal to 2, then all of them are equal to 2. And the important part is not actually the side, it's actually the diagonal. So I'm just going to redraw that triangle here on the top left. You have a 2, 2, and 2 root 2, 45, 45, 90 triangle. So this triangle is on your special 45, 45, 90, or an isosceles right triangle. And the ratios are on the sides of x, x, x root 2. So since we know that the sides are equal to x, the hypotenuse is going to correspond to 2 root 2. And that is actually the radius. So the radius is 2 root 2. And to figure out the area of the shaded region, you'll have to do the total area minus the area of the square. So the total area is just pi r squared. Of the area of a circle is pi r squared. So that's going to be pi times the radius of 2 root 2 squared. And here you have to kind of distribute the exponent. All right, and that's going to give you pi times 2 squared times root 2 squared. So that's going to turn into pi times 4 times 2, which is equal to 8 pi. So the area of the entire circle is 8 pi, but you have to subtract the area of the square, and the area of the square is just side squared, so it's just 2 times 2, which is 4. So the answer is going to be choice A, 8 pi minus 4. That's the area of the shaded region. All right, for number 18, you have this scatter plot. If m is the slope of this line beginning at the origin that best fits the data above, then which of the following must be true of m? So the best fit line has to actually go kind of through the middle, so that it cuts through all these data points, and half the points are below and about half the points are above. Again, it's just an estimate. So this is what the slope will look like. So just go through all the choices. Choice A says m, the slope is less than -1. Well, that's not true. This is a positive slope. So m has to be greater than 0. So A is wrong. B is also wrong because B says that the slope is negative. Choice C is also wrong because the slope of 0 would be perfectly horizontal. We don't have that here. M has to be positive. So we're left with just D and E. Is the slope between 0 and 1, or is the slope greater than 1? So here, we can actually draw a slope that's equal to 1. A slope equal to 1 means that it'll go through 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 6, 8, 8. It'll be a perfect diagonal. Y is equal to x, where m is equal to 1 here, because m is a coefficient of that x. And we see that the slope of this orange line is actually higher than it, so we know that the slope has to be greater than 1. Choice E. Next, for number 19, Joe fills up his 100 milliliter mug with B milliliters of coffee and then adds A milliliters of cream, so the mug is totally full. In terms of A, what percentage of the mug is filled with coffee? A percent is just part over whole. So you just want part over whole, and the part is the coffee part, and whole is the total. So to get this fraction, the coffee is B milliliters of coffee, and then it's A milliliters of cream. So the total is B plus A. But B plus A, you know, is 100, because that's the total. So it's B over 100. And now to turn this into a percent, you'll have to actually multiply this by 100%, and you just get B percent. Now that's great, but you actually want this in terms of A. So remember, A plus B is equal to 100, so B is equal to 100 minus A. So it's going to be 100 minus A%, or choice A. Should really put parentheses here, but whatever. The other way to do this question is to just substitute in with random numbers, pretend that B is 75 and A is 25. You'll figure out that the percentage is coffee, because the totals on a really nice 100 is just 75%. Substitute in all the choices, and you'll see that choice A should be the only one that will give you the percentage that is filled with coffee. All right, next for number 20, how many glass panels of the size and shape shown above would be needed to make a glass window measuring 20 feet by 36 feet? All right, so here we have these triangles, which are just 3 by 4. And you want to know how many of these would fit if you have a really large glass panel that's 36 by 20. All right, so here you see that 20 isn't a multiple of 3. So here you're going to have to draw this a different way. You're going to draw this a little horizontally. Essentially, if you extend everything out, make this a really, really big rectangle, the height would be equal to 20, and then the base would be equal to 36. And you want to figure out how many 3s are in 36. Well, there's going to be 12 of these triangles. And then for the height, you do 20 divided by 4, and that's going to be 5. Now, since each of these are triangles, you have to fill everything up. So you have to actually double 12 times 5 times 2. So here, you can actually have, for these triangles, you'll have for the bottom 12 repeating triangles by the height, which is going to be 5 repeating. So 12 times 5 is equal to 60. Now that's if they were rectangles. Since they're triangles, you have to double that again, and that's going to be choice E, 120. You need 120 of these triangles to fill a 20 by 36 feet. Now we can check our work by doing the volume. So remember, volume is 1/2 base times height, the area. For triangles, 1/2 base times height. So it's going to be 1/2 3 times 4, which is equal to 6. Now for the really big window, it's 20 by 36. And then when you divide this total volume, the total area, by the triangle area, which is 6, you can cross simplify. 36 and 6 becomes 6 and 1, and 6 times 20 is equal to 120. So that checks out. You need 120 of these triangles to fill the entire shape of the window. All right, and here's the summary for this page. Next, for question number 1, if x minus 3 is equal to 8, and then x minus 4 squared is equal to. So here you have x minus 3 is equal to 8, and you don't want x minus 3, you want x minus 4. So if you subtract 1 from both sides, you get x minus 4 is equal to 7. And then you could do a substitution here. It will be 7 squared, which is equal to 49. Choice B. All right, so for the next question, number 2 in the table above, what's the value of P? You have to do the degrees to radians conversion. So radians is just another unit of measuring angles. And here, you just don't want to find the pattern. So everything's proportional here. So to figure out the value of P, to go from 180 to 360, you got to times 2. You also have to times 2 to pi, and P will be equal to choice C, 2 pi. So to convert to radians, you have 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. So pi radians is equal to 180 degrees, or half of a circle. A full circle, 360 degrees, will be 2 pi radians. And everything is proportional, just a different unit when measuring angles. The benefit of this is, of course, that the area of the circle is pi r squared, and the circumference is 2 pi r, so everything is proportional to pi. All right, next for number 3 in the figure above, O is the center of the circle. What's the measure of angle MNO? Well, something about triangle MNO is that it's actually isosceles, right? And that's because those two sides are equal. They're both the radii, which means that the opposite angles are going to be equal as well. So angle MNO has to be 30 degrees, choice A. Next, for number 4, if f of x is equal to 3x squared plus 7, for which of the following values of x does f of x is equal to 19? So here, this is your function. And for this function, just an input-output machine. So you just replace all the x values with something, and the output's going to be equal to 19 in this case. So in this case, you have some x, you substitute into this input-output machine called f, and you get 19 as the output. So you set 19. You set 19 equal to that rule. So 3x squared plus 7 is equal to 19. To solve for this, you subtract 7 on both sides. You get that 3x squared is equal to 12. Then when you divide by 3, the x squared is equal to 4. So here x could be equal to positive or negative 2. And I see choice B, negative 2. So that has to be the answer. Now you can check your work. If you substitute an x equals negative 2 into this function, you should get 19 out. So let's double check. If you plug in and replace all the variables of x with negative 2 in this rule, you will get 3 times negative 2 squared plus 7. And then when you do order of operations, gotta do the exponents first. So this is 3 times 4 plus 7, and 12 plus 7 is equal to 19. So everything does check out. So the answer is choice B. A positive 2 could also work. Just keep that in mind. We don't see that as a choice here, but it could also work. Next, for number 5, a babysitter is trying to determine the ages of 3 children, Jerome, Keenan, and Letha. She knows the following facts about their ages. The sum of Jerome and Keenan's age is 20. The sum of Jerome and Letha's age is 21. And the sum of Keenan and Letha's age is 23. How many years old is Letha? All right, so you have a couple of equations here to set up the sentence with the word sum. J plus K is equal to 20. And then J plus L is equal to 21. And then K plus L is equal to 23. So we have these 3 equations. You can try to solve for some of these variables by doing the elimination method. One thing that you can also do is to add everything up. You get 2J plus 2K plus 2L is equal to 64. And then when you divide by 2 on both sides, you get that J plus K plus L is equal to 32. So if you know that J plus K plus L is equal to 32, and you also know that J plus K is equal to 20, here, that's that first equation. Here, if you subtract these equations, J plus K plus L minus J plus K, you just get L left because J and K got eliminated, and 32 minus 20 is 12. So the answer has to be D. Now you can also check your work just to make sure everything else is correct. If we're saying that L is equal to 12, then you know that K plus L is equal to 23. So K plus 12 is equal to 23, which means that K has to be equal to 11. Now if K is equal to 11, we can actually solve for J. We know that J plus L is equal to 21. So J plus L, which is 12, is equal to 21. That means that J has to be equal to 9. And finally, 11 plus 9 is in fact equal to 20. So everything does check out. So the 3 people are 9, 11, and 12. Next, for number 6, a study recorded the weekly allowances received by 10 third graders, as shown in the table above. What is the average arithmetic mean of the weekly allowances received by the third graders in the study? So here, because you have a frequency table, you're going to have to multiply and add if you want to get the averages. So you'll have to get the total weekly allowances and then divide that by the total number of people. Again, this is a frequency table, so you can't just do 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 8 plus 10 and then divide that by 5. Right? You have different numbers of people getting each of these allowances. So you have to multiply across each of these rows to get the total amount of money. So 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 3 is 9, 5 times 3 is 15, 8 times 2 is 16, and then 10 times 1 is 10. So if you add everything up, this would be 22. So the total will be $52. And then the total number of people is 3 plus 3, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when you do 52 divided by 10, you get $5.20. This is all you how this choice B. This is also how you calculate a weighted average. So the key here is just multiplying and adding. All right, next for number 7, a 3-digit integer, ABC, is formed by the digits A, B, and C, where A is equal to AB, B is equal to BC, and C is equal to AC. If A is an element of 1 and 3, 1, 3, B is an element of 2, 3, and C is an element of set 1, 2, then which of the following numbers cannot be ABC? So here you have a couple of elements in a set, and we don't know what they are. And what you're trying to do is you're just trying to form the digits A, B, C. So capital letter A is A times B, or lowercase a times lowercase b, and that's either 1, 3, so A could be 1 or 3, and B could be 2 or 3. So you have a couple of choices here for capital A, the hundreds place. It could be 1 times 2, 1 times 3, or 3 times 2, and 3 times 3. So the 4 possibilities are 2, 3, 6, or 9. So you see all of them in the hundreds place, so that's not helpful. All right, then move on to the tens place. So tens place is capital B, and capital B is lowercase b times C, and lowercase b could either be 2 or 3, and lowercase c is either 1 or 2. So again, you have 4 possibilities here, because you don't know what the numbers are. It's either 2 times 1, which is 2, 2 times 2, which is 4, 3 times 1, which is 3, or 3 times 2, which is 6. So the hundreds place needs to be 2, 3, 4, or 6. And we see that cannot be it. So the answer has to be choice D. But just go through all the choices just in case. Now for capital C, it's A times C. And A is either 1 or 3, and lowercase c is either 1 or 2. So the 4 possibilities are 1 times 1, which is 1, 1 times 2, which is 2, 3 times 1, which is 3, or 3 times 2, which is 6. So the ones place has to be 1, 2, 3, or 6. So here, D has to be the answer, because the hundreds place cannot be 1. There's no way to get a product of 1 you doing B times C. You can only get 2, 4, 3, or 6. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 8, 7 members of the school band, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, have been selected to play in the special jazz tribute for the governor's office. For the tribute, the governor's office will arrange these members standing in a row of 7 spots on the platform to the following restrictions. So C must be in the middle. Okay, so C is in the middle. A must be in the leftmost spot. So A is here. There has to be 2 spots between B and F. So it's B blank blank F. And D cannot stand next to C. So D can't put B there, and there's no D to the right of C. All right, so in which of the following pairs could neither person be placed in the last position from the left? So you want to know which one cannot be, who can't be last? All right, so just go through all the choices here. Choice A says B and D. So B, we know cannot be last, all right, because B has to be 2 places away from F, or I'm sorry, F could also be to the left of B. So we know that B can't be here because B is here, then F would be in C spots, so we can't have that. So Benny cannot be last. So we know that. But Daryl could be last. Daryl cannot be next to C, so Daryl could be here. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have to eliminate choice A, because we want to know which one cannot be last. Could neither of them be in last position, means they cannot be in the last spot. Daryl could be in the last spot, so we have to eliminate choice A. And also choice B, because they both have Daryl in it. Now for choice C, Charles and Ella. So Charles is in the middle spot, so we know Charles can't be there. But we don't know anything about Ella, so E could be in the last spot. So we have to eliminate choice C and also choice E, because it has Ella in it. So the answer has to be choice D. Benny and Francis cannot be in the last spot, because well, we can have B here. If B's in the last spot, then F would coincide with C. But even if F was in the last spot, Benny has to be 2 away, and Charles is 2 away from F, so they can't be in the same spot. So we know that B and F cannot be there. So the answer is choice D. There's a contradiction. Next, for question number 9, a certain recipe uses B tablespoons of butter and F cups of flour to make a batch of cookies. If Mario wants to make a large batch using B plus 2 tablespoons of butter, how many cups of flour must he use to maintain the original proportion in the original recipe? So you have B butter, and that's F flour. Now Mario wants to make a large batch using B plus 2 butter, and that means you'll have some X flour. So you set up a proportion here, because keyword is proportion. So you want to cross multiply, and you want to solve for X. So you have on the left side is BX, on the right side is F times B plus 2. Now X is your variable of interest, so you're going to have to divide by B. So then you'll have X is equal to, here you could distribute the F. You'll have BF plus 2F divided by B. And here actually you don't need to distribute. You do see choice D, which is the undistributed version of the answer. So the answer would be choice D. Again, the key here is proportion, so just set up a proportion and cross multiply. Next, for question number 10, 3 identical cubes, each with edges of length of 8, are to be cut into a total of 384 identical rectangular solids of length of 4. If the width and the height of each solid are... For question number 10, 3 identical cubes, each with edges of length 8, are to be cut into a total of 384 identical rectangular solids of length 4. If the width and height of each of these solids are integers, what's the surface area of each of these solids? So here you actually have 3 cubes, and you're going to cut them into 384 smaller pieces. Now for these cubes, all sides are equal, and in this case they're all equal to side of 8. So what we can do is find the volume of these 3 cubes. So the volume of a cube is side cubed. So side times side times side. That's why the power of 3 is called cubed. So here you have 3 of these, so you have to do 3 times the volume of one of these cubes, which is 8 times 8 times 8, or 8 cubed. Now we're going to cut them into smaller pieces, and each of these smaller pieces, we don't know the length and the width, but they have a length of 4. And the width and height, W and H, we don't know. So the volume of the rectangular pieces is 4 times HW, but you have 384 of those. Volume of the 384 rectangular prisms is going to be 384 times, here volume is still length times height, so it's going to be 4 times H times W. And what you're going to do, you're going to divide these two numbers. So when we divide these two numbers, we can actually cross simplify or cross cancel. So 8 and 384. 384 divided by 8 is equal to 48. So the 8 cancels out with the 384 and you have 48 left over. And then the 48 also cancels out with another one of these 8s to have a factor of 6 left over. And now the 6 cross cancels with this factor of 3 and you have 2 left over. And finally, this 2 cancels out with one of these 8s and you have 4 left over. So the volume, when you divide these two volumes, is going to be equal to 4 divided by 4 HW. And remember, the volumes have to be identical, so this is really equal to 1. All right, so the volume of the 3 cubes have to be equal in volume of the 384 smaller rectangular pieces. And here, you guys can kind of see 4 and 4 cancels out, so that means that 1 over HW must be equal to 1. And if you multiply by HW to both sides, you know that HW has to be equal to 1. Now the height and the width are both integers, so they're whole numbers. And the only whole numbers, when you multiply them together to be equal to 1, must be 1. So the height has to be equal to 1 and the width must be equal to 1. So that means that these rectangular prisms will actually look like this. So length is 4, the height is equal to 1, and the width is equal to 1. So these are the rectangular prisms. Now what we want to do is find the surface area of these prisms. And the surface area formula is 2LW plus 2LH plus 2HW. So that's going to be equal to 2 times 4 times 1. So you combine these two. Then you add 2 times 4 times 1 again. Take length and W when you multiply them and double it. And then 2 times 1 times 1. So you take these two. And that's going to be equal to 8 plus 8 plus 2, or 18. So the surface area is going to be choice E, 18. All right, next for number 11. If 8a plus 4 is equal to 10a, what's the value of a? So here you have to subtract 8a from both sides. That gives you 4 is equal to 2a, and when you divide by 2 on both sides, you get that a has to be equal to 2. Next one, number 12. A cookie jar contains various types of cookies, and when a cookie is selected at random from the jar, the probability that it will be chocolate chip is 1/5. Now, if the jar contains 4 chocolate chip cookies, what's the total number of cookies in a jar? So 1/5 of the total is chocolate chip, and you have 4 chocolate chip cookies. But that's 1/5 of the total. You want to know the actual total number of cookies, so you're going to have to multiply both sides by 5, because 1/5 times 5 is going to be 1, and 1 represents the total, 1 whole. And that means you have to multiply the other side by, by 5 as well, and 5 times 4 is 20. So you'll have 20 cookies in total. 1/5 of 20 is equal to 4 of the chocolate chip. So for number 12, the answer is 20. All right, next for question number 13. If 2 raised to the y plus 3 divided by 2 power is equal to 16, then what is the value of y? So here you have 2 different exponents, and you have to make sure that the bases are actually the same. If they're not the same, you actually can't do this problem. So here, 16, you're going to have to first rewrite that as 2 raised to the 4th power, because 16 is really 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So once you have both of the bases as 2, you can actually set the exponents equal. So that y plus 3 over 2, the exponent has to be equal to 4. So then you can set y plus 3 divided by 2 equal to 4, and now you can solve for y, just do inverse operations. Multiply by 2 on both sides first. That cancels out with the 2 in the denominator on the left side, and you're left with y plus 3 is equal to, on the right side, it's 4 times 2, which is 8. And then the last step is to subtract 3 from both sides, and you get that y is equal to 5. Now we can check our work by just substituting in y equals 5. So on the left side, you have 2 raised to the, instead of y plus 3, it'll be 5 plus 3 divided by 2. And that's 2 raised to the 8 over 2 power, or 2 raised to the 4th. And 2 raised to the 4th is equal to 16. So both sides check out. The answer is 5. All right, next for number 14, you have this triangles figure not drawn on a scale. If the length of UZ is 30% of the length of UY, and the area of triangle XYZ is 210, then what is the area of triangle UXZ? So here, you just have to use the area of a triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. But remember that the base must be perpendicular to the height. So if you have one of these obtuse triangles, the height is actually outside of the triangle. So that's something to keep in mind. So we're going to have to do that here. First, you have to get triangle XYZ, which is this triangle to the right side. So for that triangle, the area is 210. So it has some base, which we can call B. And now both of these triangles actually share the same height. So for triangle XYZ, the area is going to be 1/2 the base, which we'll just call B, times the height H, and that's equal to 210. So here, if you multiply both sides by 2, that's going to cancel out the 1/2, because 2 and 1/2 are reciprocals. So I'll give you B times H is equal to 420. Now for triangle UXZ, which is this triangle on the left side, the base is actually 30% of the length of UY. So if UY was 100, this base here would be 30% of that. That's the idea here. Now, since we know that the base of YZ we call lowercase b, we can call the base of UZ just lowercase c. So that would mean that C is equal to 30% of the length of UY, which is C plus B, or B plus C. So that would give you an equation. C is equal to 3/10 times B plus C. And here you can distribute, and that way we can get C isolated and replace that with the variable B. So C would be equal to 3/10 of B plus 3/10 of C. So then if you subtract 3/10 of C from both sides, on the left side, you will get 7/10 of C is equal to 3/10 of B. So here, we want to get B in terms of C, so we're going to have to multiply both sides by 10 over 3 to isolate B. So then on the right side, you just have B isolated, and that's going to be equal to 7/3 of C. Now that's going to allow us to actually solve for the area of triangle UXZ, because now we have the two equations here. So B is equal to 7/3 of C, and you can also write it the other way. C is equal to 3/7 of B. So both of these equations are equivalent. We're actually going to use the second equation here, because for triangle UXZ, the area is 1/2 base times height. The base here is C, which we're going to replace with 3/7 of B. And the height is still the same h. And then we can do a substitution. B times h is equal to 420. So that means that this would be 1/2 times 3/7 times 420. And 420 simplifies with the 7 to give you 60 left. And then the 60 into 2 cancels to give you 30 left. So you just have 30 times 3 or 90. So that's the final answer. The area of triangle UXZ is equal to 90. So here we just have to use a variation for the area of a triangle, and you have to write the variables in terms of the other. All right, next we're number 15. If 4x plus 7 squared is equal to fx squared plus gx plus h, what's the value of f plus g? So here you have to expand or FOIL the left side. So when you FOIL, you're just doing the distributive property 2 times. So it helps you write everything out. And then do first, then outer. So 4x times 4x first is 16x squared. And 4x times positive 7, remember the sign goes along with the term, is positive 28x. Then you have the inner and the last, and remember you're including the terms. So positive 7 times 4x will be positive 28x. And finally, positive 7 times another positive 7 will be positive 49. So when you combine the middle two like terms, you got 16x squared plus 56x plus 49. And that just lines up to fx squared plus gx plus h. So that means that f is equal to 16, g is 56, and h is 49. So you want f plus g, so that's going to be equal to 16 plus 56, which would be 72. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next one, number 16. Alejandro is sending postcards to his friends and relatives, and he wants each postcard to be unique. He has 8 cells of postcards, 3 types of stamps, and 2 types of colors of ink to choose from. How many different combinations of postcard, style, stamp, and ink color can Alejandro create? So this is your counting principle or your tree diagram question. And for the counting principle, what you have to do is for each type of variation, so you have postcard, you have 8 slots or 8 choices. So there are 8 branches in this tree diagram. Then each of those tree diagrams will branch out 3 more times for the types of stamp. And finally, you have 2 different colors of ink. And you're going to want to multiply these 3 because this represents the number of different combinations that you have in this counting principle. So 8 times 3 is 24 times another 2 will be 48. So what this means is that Alejandro can actually make 48 different and unique postcard combinations. Next one, number 17. If the perimeter of rectangle ABCD is 34, what's a perimeter of triangle ABD? So rectangles, as you know, you have opposite sides are equal. So if the left side is equal to 5, the right side is also equal to 5. So the bottom and the top, we don't know what it is, so let's call it W. So if you add W plus W or 2W plus 5 or 10, that's going to be equal to 34. Now to solve this equation, you subtract 10 from both sides. You get 2W is equal to 24. And when you divide by 2, you get that the width is 12. Now, for this right triangle inside, this is actually one of your special Pythagorean triplets. You have a 3, 4, 5, and you also have 5, 12, 13. So these are the base ones. You can also multiply them as well for similar triangles. Here we actually have a 5, 12, 13 special right triangle, so our hypotenuse is actually equal to 13. So to add, you got to add these three together to get the perimeter of a triangle. So that's going to be 30. If you do 5 plus 18, or sorry, 5 plus 13 plus 12, you got a perimeter of 30. All right, next for number 18, machine X produces paper clips at a constant rate of 20 paper clips per hour. Machine Y produces 10 more paper clips per hour than does machine X. Working together, how many hours will it take machine X and Y to produce 300 paper clips? So here, the key is that if you have two different machines where X makes 20 paper clips per hour, and then Y makes 10 more paper clips per hour, so that's going to be 30 paper clips per hour. If they work together, X and Y will make 50 paper clips per hour. So if they work together, you want to make 300 paper clips. Well, this is a variation of the D equals RT formula. This is work equals rate times time. The work in this case is 300 paper clips. And the rate here is this combined rate of 50 paper clips per hour. And the time, we don't know. We can just call that T, hours. Now notice that if you multiply, the units of hours will cancel out and you get paper clips on both sides, so everything does work out. That means the equation is 300 is equal to 50t. If you divide by 50 from both sides, you get that the time will be 6 hours. So again, here the key is using the work equals rate times time formula, which is a variation of the distance equals rate times time formula. All right, next for number 19, let f of x be defined by the absolute value of the difference between the smallest and also the largest odd factors of x greater than 1. For example, f of 42 is equal to 3 minus 21 in absolute value, which is equal to 18. 3, of course, is the smallest odd, and 21 will be the largest odd factor. And you subtract it, and remember, absolute value, if it's negative, it turns positive, and if it's positive or 0, it stays the same. So here, f of 90, you're going to have to first figure out the factors at 90. So for 90, you have 1 and 90, 2 and 45, 3 and 30, 4 actually doesn't work, 5 and 18, then 6 and 15, 7, 8, both of them will work. You also have 9 and 10, and those are the last ones. So the greatest odd number is 45. The smallest one that's not 1 is 3. So you have to do 45 minus 3 to be equal to 42. You can also do 3 minus 45, which is equal to negative 42. But when you do the absolute value, you get positive 42. So the answer here is 42. All right, next for number 20, what is the x-coordinate of the point of intersection of a line passing through the points 1, negative 3 and 4, 4, and a line with a slope of negative 2/3 that crosses the y-axis at the point 0, 2. All right, so here you have two lines and you want to find the point of intersection. So when you find a point of intersection, you basically have to set the equations equal. So this is really a substitution for a system of equations. And you're really doing the substitution method. So the first thing that you will need to do is to put everything in y equals mx plus b, or the slope-intercept form. And that form will allow us to do a system of equations using the substitution method. So the second equation is actually easier. because the slope is 2/3, and the y-intercept here is 0, 2. So for one of the lines, L1, it's y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. Now for the other line, it's a little tougher because we have 2 points. So that means you're going to find the slope formula, which is change in y over change in x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll have to substitute in 1, negative 3 and 4, 4. So the slope will be 4 minus negative 3. So we're going in this direction. And then you'll also have to do 4 minus 1. So when you do 4 minus negative 3, that becomes positive 7 over 3. So the second equation is y equals 7/3 x, but you still got to find the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, you'll have to substitute in what you have so far, y equals 7/3 x. You want to add some variable b. And then you would have to substitute in one of these points. So we can substitute in 4, 4, where you replace 4 with the x, and in this case, the 4 with the y. Whoops, arrows are wrong. This is the x, this is the y. And then you can solve for b. So you have 4 is equal to 7/3 of 4 plus b. And 7/3 of 4 is 28 over 3 plus b. And here, 40 can rewrite as 12 over 3 is equal to 28 over 3 plus b. Subtract 28 over 3 on both sides. So that means that b is equal to 12 minus 28, or negative 16 over 3. So that's the equation of the second line. And you can always do a quick check at this point. Make sure that the other point also makes sense. Negative 3 should be equal to 7/3 of 1 minus 16 over 3. So 7/3 minus 16 over 3 is equal to negative 9 over 3, which is equal to negative 3, so everything does check out. So these are in fact our two lines. And now what you want to do is substitute. So in order to substitute, you'll have to replace one of the variables y with what it's equal to. So you'll have negative 2/3 of x plus 2 going to be equal to 7/3 of x minus 16 over 3. So to solve for this, the annoying denominators are on the way. So you would multiply both sides by 3 first, and just distribute it, and that will get rid of the denominators at least. So you'll have negative 2x plus 6 is equal to 7x minus 16. This looks a lot more normal. Here, if you add 2x to both sides, then you add a 16 to both sides, you get 22 is equal to 9x, so x would be equal to 22 over 9. So that's what we're looking for. You want the x coordinate, so it's going to be 22 over 9. You want to find a y coordinate, you would take one of these points and substitute into either of these equations to solve for the y coordinate. Right, but here, this was a really long problem. It involved a lot of steps. First, you have to do the system of equations by setting everything into slope-intercept form, and then you can set the equations equal, because this is a system of equations, and you would do substitution for that. So that's what we did here. This is a substitution step. Once you do that, you can just use inverse operations to solve. All right, and here's the summary for this page. Thank you everyone for joining, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.